Today, yet again, I have another past paper for you guys. With the exams coming up so soon, I'm going to try and get as many of these papers out as I can. The good thing about these videos, in my opinion, is that they get a whole past paper done in around about 20 minutes. That means in the normal hour-and-a-half allocated slot that you would have, you can get over 4 past papers done in that time. Pause the video whenever you need to, take notes, and if there's any topics or questions that come up and you're not too sure, pop them down in the comments and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thank you for watching and I hope you find it useful. As requested, today we are looking at an OCR GCSE Maths higher paper. So question 1, we have a table full of standard form and we need to write the area of Lake Mweru as an ordinary number. So 5.12 times 10 to the 3 is going to be 5120. Write the lakes in the order of their area starting with the smallest. Now whenever they're in standard form, whichever power is the smallest normally indicates the smallest. So that's going to be top of 0 and we can tick them off as we go. The next one is going to be Tana, closely followed by Mweru, then Ladoga. I'm aware I'm probably butchering all of these names. And finally Victoria. Calculate the areas of this lake and that lake. Give your answer in standard form correct 2 significant figures. This is a calculator paper, so I'm just going to put 1.81 times 10 to the 4, take away 3.20 times 10 to the 3 into my calculator, and that is equal to 14900, or to 2 significant figures in standard form, 1.5 times 10 to the 4. Okay, question 2. Asmi, Beth and Callum share a flat. The monthly rent is $760. They share the rent in the ratio 2 to 3 to 3. So 2 to 3 to 3. If we add them up, it equals 8. £760 divided by 8 gives us £95. And Beth is the middle one, so that's going to be 3. So 3 times 95 is going to be £285. Asmi, Beth and Callum also share the fuel bill in the ratio 2 to 3 to 3. If Callum pays 36, how much does Asmi pay? So £36 is represented by 3 in the ratio. That means 1 is going to be 12, and if Asmi pays for 2 parts, that's going to be £24, because 12 times 2. Multiply out and simplify this, so 3 bracket x plus 2 minus x minus 1. So expanding the first bracket, we just have this. Here you have to be careful because the minus has to be multiplied out as well. So we're going to have minus x plus 1, leaving us with 2x plus 7. We have 2 triangles on a coordinate grid. We need to reflect triangle A in the line x equals 0. Now the line x equals 0 is the y-axis. That is simply going to look like this. And we have to describe the single transformation that maps A onto B. Well, it's got bigger, or smaller in this case, so it's going to be an enlargement. The best way to do this is draw lines between and through the vertices of each of the shapes, and the point at which they all meet is going to give us our point of enlargement. So you can see down here, it's an enlargement around the centre of enlargement of 0 minus 6 with scale factor of 1/4 because the shape has got 4 times as small. Ling throws a 6-sided dice 300 times. The table shows the frequencies of their results. Complete the table to show the relative frequencies. So all we have to do here is, for example, for the first one, 42 over 300, and that's going to be our answer. 27 over 300, and that's going to be our answer, and so on. So these are the results we should have got. Just make sure you can work them out, and if you have any questions, pop them down in the comments. Ling thinks that the dice may be biased. Why could this be? Well, if you have a look at the frequencies that are happening here, they're not very even. For example, there was a lot of 3s and 4s. So all the probabilities should be around about 1/6, but obviously you can see that they are not in this case. Explain why the dice may in fact not be biased. So 300 times isn't really a massive number of rolls in this case. So you would need a larger sample size. That is normally a very general answer as to why something might not be valid as a conclusion. A bag of sweets contains jellies, mints and toffees. The ratio of jellies to mints is n to 2. The ratio of mints to toffees is 5 to 3n. So jellies to mints is n to 2, and mints to toffees is 5 to 3n. Work out the ratio of jellies to toffees. So first of all, we want to make our common one, the m, equal to each other. So we can make that 10. We've multiplied by 5 there, so this one's going to become 5n. multiply that by 2, so this is going to be 6n, which means that the jellies to the toffees is going to be 5 to 6. The scale drawing represents a park ABCD, where 1 centimetre represents 10 metres. Now this looks like it's going to be loci. I can't really use a compass while I'm making notes digitally rather than on paper, but I will try and do a rough example of what it should look like. So a straight path goes across the park from B. It's always the same side from AB and side BC. So it will look something like this. You will have to draw a bisector at B, so you will make marks there with your compass, marks there, and then marks also here and here from these points. A bench is to be placed on the path. The bench must be no more than 50 metres from C. So 50 metres is going to be equal to 5 centimetres. So you would set your compass up to be 5 centimetres, and let's say that looks something like that. You will draw this shape here. Construct the locus of the possible positions of the bench. Indicate clearly on the diagram where the bench can be placed. So it will be anywhere along the black line, just like this. A train travels 120 kilometers at a constant speed of 80 kilometers an hour, and train B does 120 kilometers at 50 kilometers an hour. How many more minutes does train B take to travel 120 than A? So we can just simply use speed equals distance over time here. So if we want to work out the time, we're going to have to do distance over speed. So the time of A is going to be 120 divided by 80, which is going to be 1.5. And the time of B is going to be 120 over 50, which is going to be 2.4. So 2.4 minus 1.5 is going to be 0.9, and that is 0.9 hours. If we multiply that by 60, we're going to get 54 minutes. So that is going to be our answer. Train C has a speed of x kilometers an hour. Write an algebraic expression for train C's speed in meters per second. So x kilometers per hour. To get this in meters per hour, that's going to be 1000 x meters per hour. And to convert from hours into seconds, we're going to have to divide by 3600. So it's 1000 over 3600 meters per second. And we can simplify this by dividing by 100, first of all, which gives us 10 over 36, which can be 5 over 18 x meters per second. The width W of a kitchen cupboard is 60 centimeters. Correct to the nearest centimeter. Complete the error interval for the width W. So if it's to the nearest centimeter, we're going to add and subtract half a centimeter from 60. And 6 of these kitchen cupboards are to be placed side by side along a kitchen wall. The wall is 363 centimeters long, correct to the nearest centimeter. Show that the 6 cupboards may not fit along the wall. So the lower bound of the wall is going to be 362.5 centimeters. And if we do 6 multiplied by 60.5, which is the upper bound of the cupboards, that is going to give us 363 centimeters. Now 363 is bigger than 362.5, so wouldn't fit. Find the upper bound of the space remaining if 6 cupboards do fit along the wall. So basically we're finding the maximum amount of space that could be left. The upper bound of the wall could be 363.5, and the lower bound of the cupboard could be 59.5. So if we multiply that by 6, that makes 357. And 363.5 minus 357 is going to be 6.5 centimeters. That is going to be our final answer. An equilateral triangle, a regular 10-sided polygon, and another regular polygon meet at a point. Show that angle A is 156 degrees. If we know it's a 10-sided polygon, we can do 10 minus 2 multiplied by 180 to work out the total interior angles of the 10-sided shape, which is the same as 8 times 180, which gives us 1440. If we then divide that by 10, we know that each of these interior angles is going to be 144 degrees. If this is an equilateral triangle, each of the interior angles are going to be 60. So if we do 144 plus 60, that gives us 204. And 360 take away 204 leaves us with 156 degrees. Work out the number of sides of the other regular polygon. The most useful fact here is we know that exterior angles of a regular polygon add up to 360 always. So if you've got an angle that looks like this, and we know that this one is 156, the exterior part is going to be 24 degrees, because straight lines add up to 180. So if we do 360 divided by 24, then that is going to equal 15, so it is 15 sides in total. In a class of 30 students, 17 study French, 20 study German, and 2 do not study either subject, which has been put on the outside down here. We need to complete the Venn diagram. So if there's 30 in total, and there's 2 on the outside, that means 28 have to go within the 2 circles. I think the easiest way to do this is probably just a bit of trial and error. So if we just chuck like a 10 in the middle for now, that means that 7 would have to go there, and 10 would have to go there. As you can see, that makes 27, but we need 28. So if we change the middle number to 9, then the other 2 numbers are going to have to become 8 and 11. And as you can see, that makes 28, so that would be our complete Venn diagram. 2 of the students are chosen at random. Calculate the probability that one of these 2 students studies French, but not German, and the other studies German, but not French. If we set this up as a probability tree, so the probability of them just doing French is going to be 8 over 30, and respectively 11 over 30. The probability of them then doing German as the second student would be 11 over 29, and 8 over 29, because one of the students has already been selected. So if we multiply along these branches, we're going to have 88 over 870, and likewise this one's going to be exactly the same. If we then add those 2 up, we're going to get our final answer of 88 over 435 as our probability. The reason I've done 2 branches is because that's the 2 possible ways that this could happen. You could get the first student that just does French and then German, and you could get the first student picked does German and then the second one just does French. A solid metal sphere has a mass of 235. The density of the metal is 7.78 grams per centimetre cubed. Show that the surface area is 46.9. So we know that density equals mass over volume, which is going to be 235 over 7.78, and that will give us the volume by rearranging. That gives me a value of 30.2056 and so on. So from here we know that the volume is equal to this, so this will enable us to work out the radius. 4 over 3 pi r cubed is equal to 30.20 and so on. So rearranging this, 4 pi r cubed equals 90.617. If we divide that by 4 pi, we get 7.211 and so on. And then if we cube root that, we get 1.93. If we then substitute all of that into the surface area equation, then our final value will be 46.9 centimeters squared, as requested. A straight line passes through the point 81 and is perpendicular to the line y equals 4x minus 2. If we know that it's perpendicular, then the gradient of the new line must be minus a quarter, which is the negative reciprocal. So now all we have to do is work out the y-intercept. If we know it crosses through the point 81, this is our x value, this is our y value, we can substitute that into these 2 here. So 1 equals minus a quarter of 8 plus c. This whole thing here is going to equal minus 2. So c must be equal to 3. So our final answer, we substitute it back into the top one up here. We have y equals minus a quarter x plus 3. Y is inversely proportional to the square root of x. So setting this up, proportional to 1 over the square root of x. If we convert that into an equation, we're going to have y equals k over root x. We're given 2 numbers, so we sub them in, and that will give us k. So if y equals 5, 5 equals k over root 36, which is equivalent to 6, so k must equal 30. Going back to this, we can sub this in, and it's going to be y equals 30 over root x. Find the value of x when y is equal to 20. So again, just subbing it in, 30 over root x. This means that root x equals 30 over 20, which is equal to 1.5. So x equals 1.5 squared, which is equal to 2.25. Show that the equation of this cubic here has a solution between x equals 2 and x equals 3. If I split the page into 2, have two scenarios here. When x equals 2, we substitute that in and see what the value is. So 2 cubed minus 5 lots of 2 minus 1. That is equal to 8 minus 10 minus 1, which is minus 3. Now, if x equals 3, 3 cubed minus 5 lots of 3 minus 1 is equal to 27 minus 15 minus 1, which is equal to positive 11. So because we're trying to find the solution when it's equal to 0, because 0 is in between 11 and minus 3, then x must be between 3 and 2. Find this solution correct to one decimal place. You must show your working. So we know the answer is somewhere between 2 and 3. So if we start off with something like 2.5, put that into your calculator and see what that gives you. When x equals 2.5, y is equal to 2.125. So we need to go lower than that. So let's try 2.2. That gives me minus 1.352. So it's in between 2.2 and 2.5. So let's try when x is equal to 2.3. That gives me a value of minus 0.333. If I increase this to 2.35, the answer becomes positive. So just to double check, if we go just beneath 2.3 to 2.25, then the answer goes back to being negative, which indicates to one decimal place it must be 2.3. The following kinematics formulas may be used in this question. The initial velocity of a particle is 20, the acceleration is minus 8. After t seconds, the particle has travelled 25 meters. So whenever you have something that resembles a quadratic, it's normally going to be to do with this middle equation here. So we know that the s has to be 25, as that is the displacement. U is equal to 20, which is the initial velocity, and a is going to be equal to minus 8. So if we substitute all of that in, we have 25 equals 20t plus half times minus 8t squared. So if we rearrange all this and expand out this last bit, we're going to have 25 equals 20t minus 4t squared. And if we bring it all onto the left-hand side, we have 4t squared minus 20t plus 25 is equal to 0. And that is proving that. Finally, we have to solve 4t squared minus 20t plus 25 equals 0. So our two brackets here, we could either have 2t and 2t, or 4t and t. But in this certain situation, we have to make a positive 25, which is going to be two negatives of 5 each. Again, if you aren't too sure how I got this, put it down in the comments and I will explain it in more detail. But this is what the answer will be. So t is going to equal 2.5 seconds. Show the particle is stationary when it has travelled 25 meters. So using another one of the equations, probably this one here. So v squared equals u squared plus 2as. Because we want to find the final velocity must be 0 after 25 meters. So s is going to be 25, u is going to be 20, and a is still going to be minus 8. So v squared equals 20 squared plus 2 lots of minus 8 times 25. That's going to be 400, and this is going to be minus 400, which means v squared is equal to 0, which means v is equal to 0. The diagram shows a pyramid ABCDE. The pyramid has a square horizontal base ABCD with side 5.6. E is vertically above. Calculate the surface area of the pyramid. We have two separate things we need to do here. We have a square base at the bottom. That is just going to be 5.6 squared, which is going to be 31.36 centimeters squared. That is going to be useful later. Now for the rest of it, we have 4 identical triangles on top. This is basically 3D Pythagoras that we need to use. So if we redraw what this triangle looks like, we have a height of 6.8. If we split the base in half, the bottom bit is going to be 2.8, and we have to work out this x value here. So just by doing Pythagoras, 6.8 squared plus 2.8 squared, and then square root the whole thing will give us x. And that is equal to roughly 7.35. So now we would just do half the base times the height for all of the triangles, and then multiply that by 4 because there is 4 of them. So we're going to do 4 multiplied by 0.5 times 5.6 multiplied by the height, which is now 7.35. That gives me 82.32 centimeters squared. And if we add that to the original 31.36, we have 113.68 centimeters squared. Rearrange this formula to make y the subject. Straight away, I'm going to multiply by 2 and multiply by y just to get the denominators out of the way, which gives us this. If we expand those brackets out, we're going to have 10y plus 4 equals 3ty minus 7y. Now here we want to get all the y's on the same side and the numbers on the other side. So we're just going to take away 10y from both sides, which leaves us with this. Then we can factor a y out, which means in the bracket we're going to have 3t minus 17 equal to 4. And if we divide the bracket underneath, we have 4 over 3t minus 17. And that is the end of the OCR Higher Maths paper. As always, any questions, pop them down in the comments below and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But thank you very much for watching and good luck in those exams.